already know why we're here. Good Lord. You gotta get ready for the playoff push. And for some leagues, playoffs start this week, which is a tough week to have your playoff start because now there's that extra week of bye. Good Lord, we're going to need the Fantasy Whispers help on this one, which is why I got Johnny Game Time in the building to break down some of the thoughts, some of the plays, some of the moves that you're going to want to make heading into this playoff push, man, because dog. If we're being real, this could get ugly here. If for a lot of people, they still kept their playoffs in week 14. You've got teams on the bye. You've got major players on the bye this week.
Number one running back in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor.
You could see a lot of big teams, your number one teams in the league, go down this week because of that. Our playoffs actually start a week 14 playoff start. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to get a lot of stuff sorted out, man. And we appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us. As always, man, hit that like button, subscribe to the page. We do this weekly, but the Fantasy Whispers do it daily. So make sure to check them out over on the Fantasy Whispers YouTube page. And, of course, the fantasywhispers.com, where they always got some great articles. So, man, let's get this thing started, man. We're talking about three major players in Jonathan Taylor, in Carson Wentz, who's been a little up and down, but he's a 20 to 25 point quarterback for a lot of people.
Yep.
And good Lord, not a receiver, Michael Pittman, who's been big for a lot of people in these leagues. How do you replace guys like that who, for a lot of people, are probably at most your number one option in some deeper leagues, especially Jonathan Taylor? He's your number one option every week. What are you looking at on the waiver wire to replace those kinds of guys moving forward?
Yeah, and Pat, not only, if you're some people are like sitting here, playoffs. They're like, hey, I got to get a win this week, hoping I could get into the playoffs if theirs does start next week, like the traditional week. So couple of guys that you can eye this week that are big pickup and waiver wire pickups moving forward potentially, but at least this week it'll get you either the win or to get you to survive through this week. I can't believe this is so frustrating that they did this with the bye weeks. I don't understand the NFL sometimes. I don't understand why they don't realize that their biggest market is fantasy players, and to do this to them is ridiculous. Sorry, that's just my 2 cents on it as a fantasy analyst. But I digress. KJ Osborne is a guy that I am certainly looking to play this week if I can get him off of waivers. Listen, Adam Thielen, high ankle sprain, came out of last week's game. We do know that look, Minnesota likes to throw the ball.
Yeah.
You have Alexander Mattison in there. Obviously, he's not readily available in a whole lot of leagues, but surprisingly enough, he's available in like 10% of leagues. And those 10%, I'm like, what are you doing? Pick him up. He would be obviously the number one waiver wire if he's available, and that's a smash spot. But again, reminder, that game is on Thursday night. So that is someone that would be a quick turnaround. Obviously, I think Adam Thielen is out probably the remainder of the season. We know high ankle sprains generally are 4 to 6 weeks. But again, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. That's just general. But again, KJ Osborne, he did see 7 targets in this last game, caught 4 of them. He is a touchdown threat as well. So I do think that that's a decent pivot in the wide receiver realm. And then you're talking about running back. Unfortunately, another one you're talking about, Philadelphia Eagles, right? Philadelphia Eagles on a bye this week. That's a really good defense, right? Talk about if you're playing a little longer, Pat, Philadelphia Eagles defense is someone you could pick up. But if you have to remove the Philadelphia Eagles players because Miles Sanders got hurt and potentially he could be out for the season, you're probably going to, it sounds gross, but Carlos Hyde is probably someone that I would look at. I know it's hideous and it's gross, but
You're at
He
that
did.
point in the season, though. It's like, listen, you are fighting for scraps at this point.
You are. You certainly are. Scraps might be an overstatement, Pat. Like, I mean, it's nasty, man. I mean, my show today, it was a struggle to put it through because I mean, there was very little available.
Yeah.
So if you're in that desperate kind of mode, those are kind of the areas it's going to get nasty. It's going to be guys like Carlos Hyde, handcuffs that are probably on your waiver wire. You're probably going to have to roll one of those guys out because, like I said, there's not much on the bone this week.
Now, I asked Big Travie about this last week, but now coming down to the nitty gritty, is this somebody who,
Yeah.
I mean, at a minimum, you hope to play him. Hopefully, you don't have to play him, but we're here for those people that are going through the buy struggle, that are trying to find that right piece for the playoffs, just to get you through maybe 1 week to get your team back in order. You know what I'm saying? Any love for a Marquez Valdez-Scantling who's rostered in about 20% of leagues? He's seen an uptick in his production recently. He's drawn about 19 targets over the last 2 games, and he's caught 8 of them. Not a great ratio there, but he did get a touchdown. Is there any love in there for a Marquez Valdez-Scantling moving forward, maybe just for a 1 week plug and play kind of guy?
Does get the Chicago Bears. Sorry, Pat, this is going to hurt.
That's why I brought him up.
Yeah, he does get the Chicago Bears this week, and we do know Chicago Bears. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins got loose for down the field. We know the secondary is susceptible. So when you're looking at what MVS does, well, he gets the down the field targets. I like when the metrics point in the same direction and they line up. So in essence, MVS does have those down the field. His ADOT is like above 14. And so you like to see that. We know Aaron Rodgers will take 1 to 2, sometimes 3 shots down the field. MVS is that guy that ends up getting those shots, other than, you know, Adams, obviously. And so I do think that if you are in you know, one of those teams that need a wide receiver this week, I do think that he could be a potential player that you can put in your lineup and have some confidence in this week. Again, no Robert Tonyan there, so that does free up a big portion of this target share.
Has the Bears defense basically become the Jets? I know we don't want to talk Jets football here every week, but I mean,
we like to.
We like to. No, when you see the Bears defense now, do you kind of say, hey, let's streamline players against these guys?
And click the mute button. I do with certain matchups, Pat. I like the wide receivers, certainly. I like the down the field that's there. You know, the running defense generally was actually holding up pretty well up until, you know, James Conner. But James Conner has been pretty good for a running back this year. So I can get you exact stats on their last few weeks, but I want to say the more fantasy points are scored by the wide receiver position. So I whereas earlier in the season, Pat, you guys are pretty stout at the corners. And so I was kind of leaning away from the Bears defense in general, right?
Jalen Johnson.
And you also had Khalil Mack to get pressure, right? And so that also helps, right? It helps alleviate, you know, a bad corner. And so that's generally where I'm going. But yeah, once again, you're not really fearful of this defense because they've lost some key pieces, which is why it's nice to, you know, reassess these defenses and not necessarily go on. Also, you know, filter it down to, you know, last 3 to 4 games.
Absolutely, man. Just trying to find some of these pieces. Now, I know me and you have both been on it, but I feel like we've got to reiterate this, man, because we're seeing this guy only picked up in about 34% of leagues, and he is becoming one of Matt Ryan's favorite guys to put the ball in the hands of. What do we got to do to get people to pick up Russell Gage moving forward, man?
I mean, I would say scream from the rooftops, but I mean that won't help either, you know.
Can you trust him? Can you trust him as that guy moving forward in the playoffs? Do you think, can he be that? I know that I can put this guy in, because he's putting up number 1 numbers the last 3 weeks, I believe. Can you trust him to be that? If you got a number 1 receiver, you're number 2 in that situation consistently as you're heading into your playoff push here.
Here's two things that I want to. Okay, so looking at their schedule, they get Carolina this week. It's a little bit of a difficult matchup, but again, if he is getting, he got 8, 7, and 12 targets last 3 games, getting a nice market share again, and only has scored 1 touchdown in that span, Pat. But still, even in a PPR league, he's had roughly 10 fantasy points or more, and then even dating back 2 more games behind that. He kind of didn't show up against Dallas, but New Orleans, he did have over 10 fantasy points. So he's becoming that almost third option for Matt Ryan in this offense. Obviously, you want either Cordero. I would say you want Cordero or you want Pitts. But I do think Russell Gage, especially coming down this stretch, because like I said, you get Carolina, not the most, I mean, they're pretty stout against wide receivers, but again, the volume should float him if you need him this week. Then you get San Francisco, which San Francisco, that defense on paper looks a little bit difficult, or it wouldn't indicate a good matchup, Pat. But actually, they do allow the most fantasy points to one specific wide receiver. Most in general, they're number one, wide out on the outside. So Gage has been running those. So San Francisco, you wouldn't be. And then you get Detroit and Buffalo. And Detroit is a decent matchup.
Yeah.
Buffalo a little bit. They weren't tested last night, so the stats are going to be skewed. But they did lose Tre'Davious White, who is a big part of that defense. So moving forward, I do think, especially in PPR, I would be a little bit more skeptical in a standard or maybe even a half PPR. But PPR, definitely, I think Russell Gage is someone you should pick up and actually be confident in playing. It's the whole Atlanta offense that people are thrown off by. Again, we get these season-long biases, and we're like, oh, this is what this team is. And sure it is, but then they also do try to get better, and they do end up, solving some issues.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it's just like, oh, all right. Now, a lot of people, listen, we came on here last week, and I want to ask you about a playoff stash at the wide receiver spot. We came on here last week and talked about Kendrick Bourne as a guy who could be a nice piece for you moving on. Him and that Patriots offense had a nice little rhythm. Now, last week, if you played him this week, we're sorry because he basically was a guy who got 1 target of the 3, I believe. So.
Yeah,
that's
and
much what you get from him.
This week was brutal. I mean, in defense, though, Pat, a major reason why was the game plan, right? The weather, last night, and this is why Bill Belichick is the best coach in the NFL.
Yeah,
and this is why Mac Jones was number 1, the right pick for him, and number 2, such a good quarterback. You really saw the ego of Mac Jones and why he fits that Patriots offense, because they were like, yo, it's windy, it's wet, we're just going to run it the entire game. And that's basically what they did. I mean, Mac Jones had very few pass attempts. He had 1 pass attempt going into the 3rd quarter last night, Pat, or going to the 4th quarter. And so this is what Bill Belichick does. He will look at the game plan, he will look at weather, he will look at things that, we don't normally think about. And then he's like, yo, I'm going to make a game plan because this is what it dictates.
Oh,
and so, with that said, normally you would say, Kendrick Bourne, I do like, what he could be. Indianapolis wide receivers coming out of the bye. So week 15, I love that matchup. They've been giving up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. Then you get Buffalo again, could be a different story with weather. And then Jacksonville in most people's championship weeks, but again, another top 5 matchup for wide receivers. So yes, I do think Kendrick Bourne. That's why you tune in the show, baby, because you get gems like that.
I love the.
And no one's going to look at him. That's the thing, is no one's going to look at him this week because he's on a bye and he didn't play well in a terrible game, but it was all just game script.
That was Bill. You know what I'm saying? That was
right.
Bill just being like, listen, I saw a kicker kick the ball 30 yards and it went right.
Right, exactly, dude.
And poor adjustment. I'll say this: if you're a Buffalo owner for that as well, poor adjustment by Buffalo. Like At what point do you realize they've run the ball on you 14 times in a row? You might want to sell out for the run and force them to pass the ball a little bit. Poor adjustment by Buffalo, in my opinion.
Definitely. And again, that's what separates when people say, "Oh, I don't know, how does Bill Belichick really make a team better?" It's things like that. It's little details like that of changing a game plan or making adjustments that he knows and that he does that other coaches don't, and that's what separates, the best coach, in my opinion, the best coach that has ever played football or coached football.
You're not lying here. Let's talk a little quarterback talk here, man, because we got some interesting ones here on the market. Moving forward, I mean, listen, at least for 1 week, are you liking a Taysom Hill moving forward?
Taysom Hill, so
it's so weird. It's like 4 interceptions, but also 2 touchdowns, 100 yards rushing, over 200. Dude. It's like, what the heck?
He was one of the original, fantasy glitches in the game, right? He plays the majority of his snaps as a tight end with Drew Brees. Then he becomes a starter. Here's the thing is whenever Taysom Hill is playing as the quarterback, he produces top 12 numbers. He has produced top 12 numbers every single time when he has started the game and ended it. And yeah, even if he throws 4 picks, the reason he's that glitch and in the Konami code is because he runs so much. And so even with the finger injury, dude, even my dogs are getting into it, dude. They don't.
The dogs want taste.
Well, yeah, they want Taysom. So Taysom, with Taysom's finger injury, it was concerning to me, right? He's got that same, they call it like a nub finger or something like that. I don't know, but it's the same one as Russell had. Yeah. But the difference is that Taysom runs so much, like that's the majority of what he does, and so I do still think he's going to be fine, barring any setbacks or if anything comes out of camp or beat reporters saying, hey, they might do a 50-50 split now with him, then I might back off. But as of right now, yeah, I think Hill's probably one of the better options that you're going to have moving forward too.
Now, here's one where it's tough for me to even bring his name up because he's your guy. But he's rostered in 29% of leagues right now on Yahoo. He's coming into the bye this week, but he's coming out of the bye here. What are your thoughts on Baker, dog? What are your thoughts on Baker? Is Baker a pickup? I mean, he's rostered so low. In a lot of these leagues, like a lot of people have lost faith in him. You had the 1 week after OBJ where he really felt he was feeling himself. He was like, it's whatever he wanted to be.
Woke up feeling dangerous.
Yeah, we're feeling dangerous, and the danger, he's back about as much as Cam Newton is.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Great.
So, what are your thoughts on Baker Mayfield? Is he a pickup for you moving forward, heading into your football playoffs? Even if you just need him to streamline 1 week, he's coming in this week though versus Baltimore.
I would not against Baltimore. I wouldn't. Baltimore pretty stout against for quarterbacks. Yeah. And you're still, here's the big issue with Baker. It's not necessarily, once again, I think Baker is a pretty solid quarterback. I think he could be a really solid quarterback for fantasy football. However, he's dealing with that labrum issue, and that is affecting him a lot. He's also dealing with, I don't know, elbows, knees, and toes as well. He's probably on IMDb or what is that medical thing on a WebMD. Yeah, dude, he's got his whole body highlighted if he searches all his symptoms. But that's the reason why I'm not so confident in playing him as a flex or as a a streamer this week. And then you're talking about a division rival. Usually these games, especially later on in the year, Pat, they get ugly. And it's a lot of running, a lot of defense, and we saw that last week with Baltimore and Pittsburgh. So I wouldn't necessarily play Baker this week if I didn't have to.
I mean, and like I said, the reason we're here, we're talking about the scrap show. We're trying to get you somebody to get you through maybe a 1 week playoff push where you're dealing with these last buys, or maybe you're getting ready for the playoffs. Maybe you're hoping to find magic in a 1 week. Here's a question that I almost laughed too hard to get this out. Is there a 1 week love for Ben Roethlisberger, who had a little bit of a bounce back week last week?
Yeah, he did.
A
And he could have had a
36 on the passing yards, dog.
yeah, dude. And he was finally going deep to Deontay, our boy
Yeah.
and he could have had even bigger day. Deontay,
Was that the
dude.
end of the arm, though? Like, it looked like he was like, "This is all
Oh,
I've got to give."
is it? Yeah. And that's you gotta cross your fingers on that. If you play
Yeah.
Ben again, there is upside, definitely, and the matchup is nice, right? Against Minnesota. Minnesota is one of the best matchups that can have for quarterback. So hey, if you're asking me, I would rather play Big Ben than Baker Mayfield this week. But again, I don't feel confident in either way because here's the thing. It's like,
Oh,
yeah, the
yeah.
matchup might be good for Big Ben, but we've seen it, dude. He is so much closer to Noodle Arm 2.0 than
Yeah.
Tom Brady is. And
Yeah.
that's saying something because Tom Brady's like 10 years older, it feels like. But uh honestly, if you're looking for kind of a pivot, believe it or not, Pat, at the quarterback position that I would actually take over and have more confidence than both of those would be Taylor Heineke.
Mm.
Yeah, he's roster on just like very little, like 39 to 40%
Yeah.
of leagues right now, but he's been very very consistent so far. He's nearing QB1 as far as total season in 12 games. He's nearing quarterback one numbers. So he's been very mobile. He's shown that he has like sneaky wheels. He has 20 points twice in the last 6 games.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
he faces the Dallas Cowboys, so some people might be a little bit worried about that. I think because
Twice there too, Dallas, Philly, and Dallas to finish out his schedule.
yeah. So, but the thing is the Cowboys have conceded 15 most fantasy points to quarterbacks, and they rank just 28th in passing yards and 22nd in explosive play percentage allowed. So I do think because of how Ron Rivera is another one of those like actually pretty solid coaches, and he'll game script in order to, defeat a team, go at a
Yeah.
team's weaknesses. And so I do expect that you'll get a bunch of high percentage completions off the sides, get it real quick out of Heineke's hands, and it should be a shootout, right? Dallas can put up some points, so that should mean that Washington should have to match it. I do think that you can actually roll with Heineke if you need to.
Let's go out to some of these questions here, man. Because, like I said, we are dealing with trying to find any gems we can here. P Kid chiming in. He's he literally just like Pat takes all of the picks that that
Yeah.
he's gonna take. Like, hey, y'all all can listen. I'm giving
Okay.
I'm giving y'all the gems too.
Yep.
P Kid says, with Harris being suspended, would Trequan Smith be a good pickup?
I do like Trequan Smith as another one of those guys that if you need a fill in this week, I do think he has some upside. What we've seen over, since Taysom Hill has been a quarterback,
Yeah.
he is hyper efficiently targeted that number one. And that's what that offense does, Pat. It's generally in that 28 to 30 range that wide receiver one targets. And then you're talking about a quarterback who isn't really great at progressing in Taysom. So it's like, it's his number one option, maybe his number two if it's a check down, and then he's running, right? It's rare that he gets through all of his progressions. And so it's nice to have a guy like Trequan, who you can rely. He's going to get 7 targets pretty much in a game.
Right.
Taysom Hill can get him the ball. Here's what's great though. He gets the Jets. We know how bad the Jets are. Tampa Bay lets or allows points to the wide receiver, and Miami, which like they play up or down to their competition. So I do think that in this week for sure you can play Trequan, and possibly even week 15. He's another guy that you can, he could be a 2-week. I don't know if I would necessarily trust him against Miami, but in week 16, but he's definitely a guy for the next couple of weeks you can play. Great question.
This coming in from Anthony. He says, "Do you think Sony's worth keeping around? Also, J. Rob seems to be in the doghouse. How long do you think that will last?"
So the first one with the Sony, I'm stashing him. So I gave this advice today, and this is what we're starting. If you are already in the playoffs, because some people are in the playoffs,
Yeah.
I am no longer trying to really go for dart throws. I have my team basically that I have, right? I am going to handcuff right now. So if I have, if I or search for those handcuffs that are valuable. So to just have them on my bench for two reasons. One, if anything happens to their starters, especially in the playoffs, that becomes a gold mine, right? You all of a
Yeah.
sudden you get a player that you weren't expecting to contribute to your team. Secondly, you're keeping that player away from, if you don't have Henderson, you're keeping him away from Henderson, whoever has Henderson. So let's say that team goes in the playoffs, they lose Henderson first round. Maybe they are able to sneak past their first round player or first round matchup, go into the second round without their RB2. That's a struggle right there. Maybe you're against that player now, and now you get a counterback. So it's not always about in the playoffs. This is what separates, kind of the people that are excited and kind of luck in. Not that it's a bad thing. You could be earlier in fantasy and be excited about being in the playoffs, but the real experience that you gain in the playoffs, what you learn is you want to keep other players away from other teams. That
Yeah.
helps just as much as having the handcuffs of your own players. So I'm not really looking for dart throws at this time, unless you really need it. In some cases you do, Pat, right? But in most cases, like even if they're not getting a lot of usage, like for example, Monty, perfect one. Monty is the bell cow. Herbert's getting I think he had 4, maybe 5 carries last game. 2 weeks ago, he had 4 carries. But guess what? I have Monty. I'm handcuffing Herbert because if Monty goes down, I know Herbert's a plug and play. I don't
Right.
have to worry about it now, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to get my stashes of what my running back handcuff is now that I'm in the playoffs. And that's where I'm focusing. I'm also focusing on grabbing multiple defenses now and holding multiple defenses. Same reason. It's going to allow you to play matchups. That's what you want in the playoffs, is matchups for your defenses, because that's a big advantage for you. And then it's also holding that defense away from somebody else that might play it against you. So it's all about tactic and what you play, but also keeping players away from other people.
Here's an interesting one again from P Kid. P Kid, appreciate you for tuning in, my boy. Don't be salty out here. Edmund comes off IR. What are your expectations for him? One of your boys, man.
Yeah, one of my guys. I do think that based off of what we saw with James Conner and this was bad, bad call by me. I'll admit it. I did not think James Conner, but I'm glad it was on my team when I'm wrong, because I'll tell you, like James Conner really, hats off to him. I did not expect him to play as well as he has played this year. I did expect him to have, the red area, red zone carries,
Absolutely.
stuff to the goal line. I thought he was going to have the short yardage, but I thought it was going to mostly be Chase Edmonds. And that's kind of what we saw in the beginning. But James Conner was, scoring those touchdowns. Whenever he was getting the opportunity, he was producing. And then when Edmonds went down, he really sees that. So now I do think that he's garnered enough and he's shown enough to where they will use him now probably as the more dominant rusher. He'll probably continue to get that Chase Edmonds role. And then Chase Edmonds will probably go back to seeing what we saw, last year when Kenyon Drake was the running backfield. So that's probably what it's going to look like moving forward. I do think that Chase Edmonds, especially in PPR, still holds value because he's still going to get, 7 to 8 targets. Kyler Murray loves him. This team really likes him. So he's still going to get a lot of opportunities moving forward. So I do think he's a decent stash.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you too. There, kind of. Do you think that because Kyler loved, he was Kyler's guy, he really he was Kyler's. He was like, I got everything I need in this guy. Do you think because Kyler loves him, he gets his spot back? Because Kyler's been out a lot of the time.
Yeah,
that Conner was rolling.
True. Fair point. I mean, and that could definitely happen. And talk about to the extent, I mean, it's almost like it's pretty high. Like Kyler Murray is like Edmonds' number one hype man. He puts in his own stories how Chase Edmonds is going to be, RB1 season, all that. So it's gone pretty almost to the Stephen A, days of how much they're friends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like real close. That's, similar to me and you, Pat. But what
I
I'd say,
love it.
yeah, exactly. But what I'd say is there's always that possibility. But again, when you're in the playoffs and right now, you kind of want to go with what you do know and not necessarily what you're guessing. Now, we could definitely see that. If we see that come this first game, then yeah, that's probably what it's going to be. But again, I'm just going off of kind of what I'm hearing from
Yeah.
a couple sources on what they're saying is probably what to expect moving forward because James Conner did produce so well.
Here's another one. Would you drop Mattison for Hilliard, who has killed it? You know what though, dog? It's so weird. It's like I don't want anybody from Houston, and every week we watch somebody from Houston get busy.
Yeah, well, and then I mean, Mattison is like league winner. Like Mattison is a 1-for-1 replacement for Dalvin Cook, and actually has been more consistent than Dalvin Cook has this year. With Hilliard, look, I do like Hilliard. He's shown some really good explosiveness, but you've also got Donta Foreman there as well, who is taking that 1 and 2 down work. So it's a backfield split. Now, Hilliard does have a very nice schedule. I love Tennessee's playoff schedule. They have a really good one. So I would advise picking up Hilliard, but I would not drop Mattison for Hilliard. Mattison is, an RB1 rest of season, or as long as Dalvin is out. Hilliard is more of like an RB3 higher upside flex play for you, low end RB2 moving forward.
Let's head out to the Twitterverse a little bit too.
Love it.
Jacob says, need a tight end. Would you add Conklin, Fairmouth, Font, Seals Jones, or Cook? Who would you drop between Foreman and Gesicki?
Ooh.
You got a lot of decent. No, Seals Jones, I guess.
Seals Jones
should be on there.
Yeah, exactly. So, I like Freiermuth season, like rest of season kind of value, right? I think he has the longer term play, but again, you have Mike Gesicki, so it looks like you're going to be a 1 week play. So I do think that you can go Conklin. I think Conklin is a good 1 week fill-in. I actually also do think RSJ is, surprisingly enough, a 1 week fill. Well, he actually could be a low end, a budget tight end rest of season, simply for the fact that he has an amazing playoff schedule for tight ends. That's why we liked Logan Thomas so much coming off the injury. Unfortunately, Logan Thomas out rest of season with they say he has a chance to come back, but I'm like, what does he think he is? Tom Brady? No, he's not coming back. Okay. Not everyone can just play on these torn ACLs and MCL. Nah. So
I'm not playing
RSJ
that story either. I think Brady needed to hype up his own brand a little bit on that.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Be like long for an MCL to heal,
bro. I think he's just like fully trying to convince us, and just like we just have to say that he's an alien, bro. Like there's just something that is just different. He just comes from a different planet.
If it took an entire NFL season for his MCL to heal, he is an alien. Because that's not how MCLs work.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly true too. So I don't,
He's still the GOAT. I'm not mad at him.
He's still the GOAT.
He's got here's from Damon. He's got playoffs week 15, 16, and 17. He said rank these defenses: Cleveland, Kansas City, San Diego, Cincinnati.
So say it one more time. I'm gonna write
Cleveland.
Okay.
Cleveland.
Okay.
San Diego, Cincinnati.
Okay. So I do think Cincinnati, they're an interesting one because they're an opportunistic defense. I think they're decent. But their playoff schedule isn't the greatest. It's not like cakewalk down where you'd be like, oh, this is definite plug and play. But I do think that they are very solid. Looking at Cleveland, we're about Baker Mayfield. They have some decent matchups as well. They're a solid defense, right? Opportunistic as well. Get the Raiders, Green Bay, and Pittsburgh though. So I don't know if I'm necessarily rushing out to want to start them. I would probably rank them number 3 on this list.
Mm.
San Diego, I like. San Diego gets the Jets this week. That is going to be a really
It's the Jets.
Yeah, it's the Jets, exactly. And they're very, they get a lot of sacks. We saw obviously they were picking off Joe Burrow left and right last week. So I do think that is probably one of it. And I just want to say, like, Kansas City is a low key good defense now. Like they have really, we've talked about this throughout the season, right? Pat, where you said, hey, we started off really bad on defense and now they're actually a play. Do we believe it? Do we not? Sometimes it's matchups. Sometimes teams do just start off slow, and that just looks to be where Kansas City's at. They have a lot of opportunistic ball hawks on that defense. This is their schedule moving forward. Las Vegas, we know Derek Carr is prone to throw turnovers.
Right.
LA Chargers, Herbert can struggle at times, and he did against this defense before. You get Pittsburgh, Big Ben. Do I need to say more? And then Cincinnati, Joe Burrow just had a pick fest. Sign me up for that. So, and not only that, here's what's so great is this offense isn't necessarily performing they're making adjustments, but they're still not performing as well as they wanted to, or as their potential. And so this defense is actually having to step up and actually play better to help win these games. And so that's what I do like. So I would actually rank them as a low key number 1, and then San Diego, Cleveland, and Cincinnati.
Not bad. Cleveland is, it's just Cleveland. It's so weird.
Cleveland. It's so weird.
It's just like every time you look at them, it's like it should be a must play.
Right. But no, and yeah. Dude, they have such a good here's the 2 things that you like. Like they have a good defensive front. They can get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, obviously.
You know that here in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. And so you do like that, but they're one of those teams again. You get these teams that like show up for their opponents and they play like either up or down to their opponents, and that's where Cleveland kind of falls. And those kind of defenses make me nervous because those ones are the ones that you kind of buy into, and then when you need them the most, they end up pulling the rug underneath you, and that's not what you need in the fantasy football playoffs. You need to go with, again, things that and you can bank on, because you want to let your opponent make the mistake and go for the swinging for the fences, and you just play your game. Because more oftentimes than not, you just playing solid lineups, playing with guys that that have gotten you this far, are gonna continue to work, and then you let your opponent mess it up and kick themselves out of the playoffs.
Get one more here from the Twitterverse and hop back in the chat. Joe Kelly says, says he lost Thielen, not sure about Keenan or Debo, and Pittman is on bye. Should I get Osborne or Gage off waivers? Thinking have in case another guy comes through and I'm not locked on KJ.
Yeah, so that's basically what I was gonna say. I'm glad you added it, because I would in this case go with Gage. I think Gage and Osborne are both, they have very similar ceilings to me, very similar floors. Like they're very they're both good, especially
get your 8 to 11 points a game.
Exactly. But here's where the game strategy part comes in, and they hit it on the head, is that it buys you time by getting Gage. It allows you a little bit more time to see if some of those other wide receivers are going to be able to give it a go or whatnot. And so that's why. And so it's like, that's a better pivot than, getting stuck with KJ. And then all of a sudden it is like, oh, hey, Debo will be back this week. And you're like, I would much rather play Debo in a great matchup than, KJ. So that's
Nick says rank these 3: Christian Kirk, KJ Osborne, and MVS.
So I would go KJ Osborne. I would go MVS. No, sorry. I would go KJ Osborne, Christian Kirk, then MVS.
There you go.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, Nick. Appreciate you for tuning in and rocking with us. Says, need a defense. Should I drop Odell or Van Jefferson?
Don't really want to drop either one of them.
That's a tough one. This is from Jerry.
Jerry, you got anybody else you could drop, brother? I'm sure you got somebody else worse than those two players, but
you know what you never see though too is like a lot of times people forget to tell you how many people are in their league. So it's like I gotta drop these guys. I'm also in an 8-team league and I have the pick of the litter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, exactly.
I hope that if you're dropping Van Jefferson or Odell, that these are your options here.
Right. So what I would do if I have both these guys and I have to drop one of them, I would drop OBJ. One, he's dealing with an injury already. There is a little bit of connection issues that we've seen not only happen. He was upset that he didn't get a touchdown. That Matthew Stafford overthrew him this past week.
Yeah.
So his targets, although he has matched Van Jefferson has really kind of stepped in as this wide receiver too. And I think he has the safer. He's more familiar with the playbook. They really liked him, going back to when they drafted him. They thought this kid was the next Keenan Allen. That was the reports coming out of beat reporters. So I would trust a little bit more in Van Jefferson than I would OBJ moving forward. But I do want to preface this one more time in saying that I would really try to drop somebody else other than those two for defense.
And I wonder, in that situation, that's got to be a situation where he's got a great defense and he doesn't want to drop the defense.
Yeah.
It's got to be like if you're going to drop a player
to
go get a defense, like you're not running out there with Tennessee for your playoff schedule.
No, maybe. There is the Philadelphia Eagles. They have one of the better playoff schedules for defenses. Like they play Washington and then they play the Giants, sandwiched in between there. And so Taylor Heineke actually ends up allowing a defense to be pretty solid against them. And then the Giants could be without Danny Dimes. So if maybe they have the Eagles, so you want to keep them for that, I get it. But at that point, I'd probably just drop OBJ and just go with Van. And
I'm hoping you just in an 8-team, dog. And you can just
hopefully.
Like, that's a tough question, dog. Here's P Kid yet again. He's back in here. He's trying. Yeah. That like his screen is on fire as he's just adding people at the.
I know, dude. You probably just keep getting these buzz. Yeah, you probably just keep getting these like little notifications on your phone saying, P Kid added.
He says, okay, here's the last question. Tyler Boyd for Harris since he's out of there.
Yeah, I don't mind this. I don't mind this move.
Boyd is interesting because it's like, shout out to Ringo. I traded him Boyd for Kyle Pitts, but appreciate that, Ringo. But it's like he doesn't. He's either Joe Burrow's best friend or like the redheaded stepchild in this offense. Like there's no middle.
Yeah, dude. He's like
Tyler Boyd.
He's like the Walmart version of Tyler Lockett. It's like you go there for the bargain, and it's like sometimes he does. Like he'll get like 20. Like you'll look at games and you'll be like, oh, he saw 27% of the market share, and then other teams or other times he'll have like 12%, 10% of the market share there. And it's just, it's game plan. That's again why a lot of this and what we say is like, go with the matchups, because you tend to like teams pave way for future teams to see where weaknesses are in defenses until they can solve it. And so that's what you generally look for. So I'm not trying to get cute. I don't know if I'd ever, to be honest with you, I don't know if I'd play Tyler Boyd in my lineup. So that's why I'm not like kind of rushing out there. Like I would rather have like KJ Osborne or Russell Gage than Tyler Boyd.
Here's an interesting one. It says, should I stick with Hunt as my flex for the playoff run or drop him for a waiver guy? Edmonds, Hubbard, Abdullah, Melvin Gordon, McKissick. I have JT, Connor, and Mattison.
Oh, Jonathan Wow.
He's got some. He's got
options. He's got options.
If he's going into the bye here, JT's not playing.
Right.
So if playoffs start this week for him, he's got no JT. So he's going out with Connor and Mattison.
I like those two. And then remind me who he was trying to
And then
drop.
he's saying, should he stick with Hunt as my flex for a playoff? You got a lot of backs.
Yeah,
Jeez,
I
man.
know. That's why I was like,
season like me, like you were listening, running back early and often, brother.
Yeah, dude. First 6 picks, he probably just went all straight running back.
And then he said,
I wouldn't.
does he drop him for Edmonds, Hubbard? Edmonds coming back off IR. Hubbard, Abdullah, Melvin Gordon, or McKissick?
I'm not. Maybe the one that I would say potentially would be Hubbard because he's going to get the lion's share, right? CMC out for the season. But again, like that offense isn't very like it's with Cam. Cam might start looking elsewhere. I don't know if he dumps off. The major reason why we liked Chuba earlier was because Sam Darnold was the quarterback, and Sam Darnold was actually being like check down McGee. And so you liked it. But I don't know if Cam is going to do the same thing to CMC. And people might be like, well, he did it with CMC, but we have to remember before CMC got there, that was the biggest whole thing that everyone was talking about was like, oh, they got CMC. Oh, but who cares? Because but Cam never threw to the running back. He would just run it. So why does it matter? And then, of course, what happened? CMC, one of the best running backs. It's just depending on what their system will dictate. And I don't know if that's going to dictate Chuba now that Cam is in there to do the same thing. So ultimately,
they don't know what they're just throwing anything at the quarterback position.
I love how they come out this week and they're like, Cam is still our starting quarterback. I'm like, I hope so, because you guys just paid him a buttload of money to do so for 8 weeks. That's what you get.
That is what you get. I'm not gonna lie. It was for the story. It was just for the story.
Totally.
Then you lose 100%. CMC again. Good grief. I'm sorry. Hey, let's go. Here's Anthony here. He says, Pitts has been killing me. Do you think Dallas Goedert is any better?
Yeah, I do think Dallas Goedert is a guy that you can roll with. Listen, Pitts is a rookie tight end that's playing all over the field. And so you're going to have to go through these ups and downs. And so it's frustrating, but all tight ends do this. I mean, Kelsey, the number 1 tight end in the league by far. He just put up 4.3 points or something like that. He had a terrible game. Some of these sometimes it's matchups. Sometimes Pitts was the only one, and he's had a difficult schedule like against the Pats. Pats are the number 1 defense against tight ends. I mean, they shut down Knox as well. So some of it is matchup based. Some of it is the fact that like I would play Goddard. So I actually don't mind having both of these tight ends for very similar to what we were talking about earlier, Pat, in that one, you could play matchups with the 2 tight ends, always the best option, right? And you can also keep Dallas Goedert away from anybody else that is in your league. And now you tie up a position that is hard to find, streaming options or better options. So that's the other reason why I like to kind of hoard the tight end position, because you can kind of create a little monopoly on it.
Yeah, there's not really like I love that we get the Pitts questions every week, because it's like, who's the tight end that's giving you 20 a week? Like the one guy that there was is no
Gronk. That's it.
It's Gronk.
It's Gronk. It's Gronk, and he's been injured. So
and it's literally because like I was telling him, I was like, there's no really like that tight end quarterback bromance like Brady and Gronk have. Like Gronk is the end zone option. I mean.
He's unguardable. I mean, and honestly, he should have had another touchdown in that game.
Yeah.
Cameron Brate caught the touchdown, but the play right before, dude, it was Gronk, and he was wide open.
Yeah, no, I was playing him. I was like, oh, Gronk, you gotta come down with that. And then the next one, Brate got it, and I was like, the one time Cameron Brate decides to have a catch there.
Right. So frustrating. So
here's it's from Celtics Lamp. We got a Boston fan in the on the Twitterverse. Says need to start 2: Elijah Mitchell, Devontae Freeman, and Hunter Renfrow. Who you liking in that?
So I'm definitely sticking Hunter Renfrow in my lineup. That guy is super safe, especially if Waller is out again. We don't know as of right now. Waller is still not at practice, and Renfrow just is the safety blanket. And not only that, but Derek Carr trusts him because he just catches everything. You look at Renfro's on the year catch percentage, Pat, over 80%. Over 80. That's unheard of for a wide receiver. And it just, because Renfro just has this connection, he's so close to the line of scrimmage as well. And so he's just very safe and consistent. We talk about that, helping win you championships, getting those players in your lineup, safe and consistent. Renfro is one of them. So, I'm playing him. The other one was
Elijah Mitchell and
Elijah Mitchell. Yeah. So Devonta Freeman, I do think he is the most sure running back that you can bank on in Buffalo and Baltimore, excuse me. I do think if you have to play him or you want to play him, he'll give you a solid floor. But the guy that I'm going is Elijah Mitchell. I'm staying in the Flames. This guy has continued to get on the field more and more. This guy has continued to draw more and more target share. He is electric. He is scoring. He is their red zone target leader. This guy is going to also help people win championships because guess what? The Jets are bad. They're always throwing from behind, and they're going to get the ball to their most electric playmakers. And you've also got Michael Carter out with his injury. So it all is bowing well, and thumbs up for Elijah Mitchell. I'll be honest. This past week is what completely sold me on that. I like Elijah Mitchell's just, I think he's matchup proof, Pat. And I might get burned for saying that, right? Like people might, but like this last week, he had a very difficult matchup and he still went out and produced. So I'm putting him in my lineup. I'm putting him in my lineup if I have him.
Hey, I love that trust in him, man. I love that trust. There's I don't got a player in my lineup right there right now. I'll tell you right now, boy.
Mark Ingram style, dude. Big trust.
Hey, man, there's big trust out here. I got Antonio Brown on my roster, so
dude, tell me about it, man. Tell me about it, dude.
My roster.
All I do is
Aaron Rodgers can't get suspended, but my God, we can suspend Antonio Brown. We wouldn't think suspending Aaron Rodgers,
right? And then try to bring up that argument, and it's different. It's different. How's it different? you look up the letter of what the NFL and the NFLPA suspended AB for, and it was literally the letter of the law was the exact same thing they wrote for Aaron Rodgers. So I agree. You tell me the difference.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
That's a cage where it was guilty and there was no proving him innocent because he was just they're just like, oh, it's AB. Yeah, we believe it. It's AB. Okay.
It was the Boogie Cousins technical foul treatment on that one.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm not Boogie Cousins. You might as well,
right? And I'm not. And the thing is, I'm not saying he didn't do it. Like he might have actually done it. I don't actually know. I haven't seen actual proof. But here's the thing I will say is like the moment that stuff came out. And there was some financial reasons behind it. The reason that Cook came out was because AB owed him 10 grand. So that's what is a little shady. But again, he was just like the moment his name, it was like guilty by association. So, but I'm with you, man. That was I don't understand.
It's shady out here, man. Listen, we appreciate you guys. You guys have rocked with us the entire season.
Yeah, man.
As we're coming down to playoff time. So we gotta ask a fun question before we get out of here because we've been dealing with the hard hitting questions. Who's the guys? I want two guys. The one guy you were like, listen, Big Trav, you can go with that guy, but I wouldn't trust him at all. And he absolutely proved you wrong. And who's the guy that you feel liberated about that proved you right this season?
When I would say prove me wrong, I would have to see. It would be James Conner. I was really on the Chase Edmonds bandwagon. And again, it wasn't like Chase Edmonds didn't do anything. I mean, getting injured didn't help. And he was producing right when even when James Conner was getting all the touchdowns. But I really did not think that James Conner was going to be at all what he was this year. I didn't even think he was going to be half as good as he was this year, to be honest with you. And so that was one that Travis was definitely like, hey, he was like, Johnny, you might need to reel it back on this one because we don't want to go too far on it. And so that would be definitely the biggest one that I would say is just that was a bad call on my part. The other one, the one I do, and I'm proud of this one, because I'm a huge fan of him as a football player. But I mean, I stuck with him. I'm talking about through thick and thin. Pat, I'm not even through the dark days, dude. Darkest days. That is my boy, DeAndre Swift. Listen, I know he's banged up right now, and hopefully we'll get him back next. But the fact that everyone and their mother was doubting him, saying he's not worth a pick, would be a bust. And I hung true. He's one of my favorite players. I'm like, this guy, his talent, he is different. He is a different running back. And everyone wanted to point out, he plays for Detroit, this, that, and the other. And Pat, when he went down, Pat, he was a top 5 running back in standard. He was a top 2 running back in PPR. He's a monster. So I'm really excited. Hopefully we get him back sooner rather than later for this playoffs, and he can lead people to championships, because that's what I really think can happen.
And there you have it, man. There you have it. I had to know, man. I had to know.
Appreciate it. I love that question. That's a good one.
That's always an interesting one, man, because at the beginning of the season, we feel great about everybody. It's like, no, his coaches said that he's been working, and we really like this guy. And blah. It was like,
well, yeah, and a halfway one on that one was the Debo. Another the Debo. I switched. I was all on Brandon Ayuk, man, all about it, off Debo. And then what ended up happening, you listen to the wrong beat reporters, and then week 1 comes out and they're like, oh, Debo has been the glory, like the star of the training camp, and Ayuk has been in the doghouse this whole time. You're like, where was this? Why can't I get this?
We got one more in here before we get out of here. I always let you sneak one in. He says start Eli Mitchell or Melvin Gordon.
So Eli, you got to monitor. Eli Mitchell might not give it a go. He's in concussion protocol right now. So he's another one, Pat. I was going to mention this earlier. Jermichael Hasty. He is a guy that I would probably be looking at on waiver as a deeper stash because Eli Mitchell has the concussion. You also have Jeff Wilson, who would be the backup normally, but he's also dealing with that knee flare-up coming back off of his injury. So if he does end up missing, then Trey Sermon's already on IR, so they would go to Jermichael Hasty, and he could have a nice little pop-off game there. So if Eli is in, though, I would play Eli over Melvin Gordon. But again, if Eli's out, then you play Melvin.
And that's where you have it. Yeah, I don't know why I just had a stroke right there. Y'all saw that? Hey, we appreciate you as always for tuning in and rocking with us, man. As always, we appreciate Johnny Game Time Hicks for tuning in to the show, man. Like I said, they've been here with us all season, man. Make sure you check them out over on the Fantasy Whispers YouTube page, man. They're doing some great things on there week in and week out. Make sure you get your weekly fantasy advice from the boys over at thefantasywhispers.com. Johnny, you got anything you want to add?
Just want to say thank you so much, Pat, for having us this year. Had a blast on your show, man. It's been fun collabing. Hopefully we continue to work together. We got to get you on our show, man. We do Monday night streams for the game and stuff.
Monday night game. And
or Thursday night. We're doing Thursday night now too. So
we're going to do this right now because we always say this and we never are available on Monday night because of the basketball season. By the way, check out the Bulls, what they're doing. I'm just saying first place in the Eastern Conference. Get at me. Let's see. When's the next open Monday?
Or Thursday. We could do it Thursday night. We have Thursday night for the next couple of nights as well. So if that works better for you,
Bulls are playing Thursday.
Of course they are. They're a good team now. So they want to showcase them.
But you know what? Where we at? Next Monday. There is no Bulls game. We got Wednesday versus the Cavs, Saturday versus the Heat. Next Monday, there is no Bulls game. We'll pull up on.
All right. We got you. We'll put you down for like an hour segment. You guys can do that?
Whatever you want to do. You know
all right, man.
At this point, by next Monday, I might be out of the playoffs. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I might just be busting balls in there. You never know. Anyway, man, hey, I appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us, man. Make sure to check us out next Monday over on the Fantasy Whispers page as well, man. Tune in and rock with your boys. Hey, we appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us. It's your boy, Pat the Designer, back at it again. As always, joined by Johnny Game Time Hicks. Y'all stay safe out there, world. Go get some dubs this week, man. Let's get some dubs. Let's get some dubs.